Hello and welcome. In today's video, I have partnered with Megear to evaluate their Flex AC Smart Charger, which they have sent me for free. I didn't pay for it, but they also didn't stipulate that I say anything specific about their charger. They just said, please review this and make a video. So let's get it unboxed and see how it comes. Okay, so this is how it comes in the box. It has some good styrofoam padding here on the top, and it comes in a really nice case. So let's get this out. Yeah, that's interesting. It has a complete cocoon box of foam padding, so that's really nice there. It comes in this really nice case. Has their logo on the front, otherwise it has no labeling, and it does have a carry handle here on top, which I quite like. Inside we have some paperwork up here in the lid, some manual instructions and things like that. Now this particular charger, it comes with two plugs. You can see here it comes with the 515 adapter, which is your standard household outlet that can handle up to 15 amps. And then it also has the NEMA 1450 plug, and those are interchangeable plugs. So let's look at that here. So first off, we have the main device, which is, this is the end of it. Let me get this opened up. All right, I've gotten the tape cut off. Let's get this opened up. So it has bubble wrap wrapped around this. This is the J1772 connector. And they have a plastic ring right here on the button so that this button cannot be depressed fully. That's interesting. As a side note, this ring just pops off. I think it's just here for packaging purposes or protection during shipping. So you can just do that and it comes right out. And then it comes with a rubber cap, and that's the J1772 connector there. The rubber cap has a pretty long tether on it, but it has to be able to reach from the bottom of the handle here all the way to the top up here, so that makes sense. And then here on the main charge device, let's get the shrink wrap off of that. All right, so the main device has a nice design to it. Oh, and it has the holder right here. So you can see that this is the holder that is meant to hold it on the wall, and it just comes already on it. And you can see that there are two holes in this holder right there, and that's where it would be screwed to the wall to then hold this charger. Looking at the rest of the devices in here, we have the NEMA 1450 plug here. So let's get that shrink wrap pulled off. So the NEMA 1450 connector comes with the plug protectors on it here, and otherwise that's about what I would expect. And let's see how well it fits into the charger. So this plugs into the mobile connector with a pretty firm plug, so that feels good. There needs to be a lot of tension there to make sure there's no arcing and overheating in the device. The length of this is about as short as you'd want it to be and still have flexibility in case it needs to be plugged in like this, which I'll show you my garage. My ground is on the bottom. Otherwise, the construction of this feels pretty good. I like the feel of it. It has a slight rubberized texture on the outside of this device, and the wall bracket is nice for hanging it in the garage. Now this is a 22-foot cord right here, so you can see this is all coiled up in the box, and so that's a good length. The Tesla mobile connector as a point of reference is 20 feet long, so this is 2 feet longer than that. And then it also comes with this, which is a J1772 holder. So you can screw this to the wall, and then this will receive the connector. So you can pull this on and off when you are not charging. This will hold the handle to the wall, and then this other bracket down here is what holds this base to the wall. And you can have them in two totally separate locations. So that's nice. I like that. Then it also has this part right here that sticks up. And this would be for winding the cord over the top of it, and this will be able to hold cord that way. And then this also came with screws and drywall anchors, so this is helpful for getting that installed. It comes with all the hardware necessary. And last, we have the NEMA 515 outlet. This is your standard household outlet adapter. So let's see how that looks. And yeah, it has the same plastic protector on it for the prongs. This is NEMA 515. You're familiar with that as a standard household outlet. And let's see how that feels. Yep, that plugs in nicely. Let's go up to the garage now and try charging the Tesla with this. The first thing I'm going to do is test the mobile connector here with the standard household outlet, and I have one right here. So I'm plugging that in. And here on the device, you can see the light is green, so that is indicating it's ready to go. So let's go plug it into the car. I routed the cable around behind the car, and it's here on the floor. And the first thing I need to do is put the J1772 adapter on. Now this adapter comes with all Teslas, and so if you have a Tesla, then you should have this adapter. And then I'll go ahead and plug it into the car. And let's see how it shows up in the car. Now if we look here at this charging ring, we can see it's pulsing green, so that indicates that it is charging. Here in the car, we can see that it's charging at 12 amps, which is what we would expect because it's on a 15 amp circuit. There's an 80% rule that you're only supposed to be charging at 80% of the circuit's maximum. And so that's 12 amps, and that's what we're getting. And so at this point, you can see the battery on the car is run down to 14%. I ran it down so that I could do this test today and verify the charger works well by charging for a long period of time, making sure it doesn't overheat and that sort of thing. So right now I have the charge limit set to 90%. We can see that the car is charging at 121 volts and 12 amps, and so that translates to about 1.4 kilowatts. And it would take a long time charging at this rate. You can see right now it's still even just calculating, and it will not go over 24 hours, and this would take several days. So that's not really terribly helpful. It will take a long time. I'm switching out the NEMA 515 adapter here, and I'm going to plug in the NEMA 1450 adapter now. Let's get this plugged in. So over here is my NEMA 1450 plug that I installed. As you can see, the ground plug is pointing down, and that's because I normally charge this with a cord that's coming from above, and the ground plug is at the bottom. So I'm going to plug this in this way. There we go. And you can see the light is green, so let's go plug it into the car. And I just wanted to show you how I routed the cord. I have a variety of other cords here from other experiments and things that I do on a regular basis. This is the cord for this charger here. It's coming up and around through here. This metal bar I installed to have my cables hanging from the center of the garage because they can't be mounted on this wall. If you're interested, I'll put a card above to the video of when I outlined this charging setup there. So this is the cable here, and it loops around over to this hook that I have it hanging from right there. And so let's get this plugged into the car. So bring this around down here. We'll plug it in. And the car should start blinking green. Yep. So you can see here it changed automatically to the 40 amp charge rate, which is correct for the NEMA 1450. And if we look over here at the instrument cluster display, we can see that it's indicating 240 volts and 40 amps. It looks like it has finished evaluating the time remaining, and you can see it's now saying 6.5 hours to charge the car to 90%, which I'm very happy with. That's a very fast speed. For a mobile connector to be 40 amps is actually really good. As a point of reference, Tesla's mobile connector, the Gen 2, is a maximum of 32 amps. The Gen 1 mobile connector that came with Teslas back in the day when mine was made can handle up to 40 amps. So that's what I'm used to, and I'm loving that this mobile connector can do the 40 amps as well. I'm going to leave this charging for another 6 hours, and right before it's completed, I'm going to come out here and evaluate the temperature of this mobile connector and the cord and connectors to see how well they have not overheated over the course of a long charge, which in this case will be 6 hours. So let's fast forward to then. It is now many hours later. You can see up here it is 6:49 p.m. and the battery is up to 85% now. Looking at the details of the instrument cluster display, you can see it's at 237 volts and 40 amps according to the car. And so let's now check the temperatures of the mobile connector, each end of it, the device, and the cord in between. According to my garage door opener, it is 53 degrees here in my garage. You may have noticed when I started recording this morning that it was 11:42 a.m. and now it is 7 hours later. So it's been charging at 40 amps most of that time, and you can see clearly the temperature over here of the mobile device. The main connector is hot, and then you can see the line through the garage through that yellow line because it's warmer. So I'm going to come over here and let's measure the actual temperatures up a little bit closer. So the adapter is right there, and the adapter is almost 60 degrees, about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The handle of this connector is 55 degrees. Looks like the harder part is right there at 63, and then we'll get down to 55 degrees here. Coming out of the handle on the back side, looks like it's sitting at about 63 degrees. The cord farther up here away from the connector is about 63 degrees as well here. So then, as you can see, it loops around up over that way and over here. So let's measure another spot over here. All right, so here it's about the same, 62 degrees. And then coming around this way, we can see that right here as it's coming out, it's warmer at 75, 77, 78 degrees. And then getting into the device, it drops down to 55. And then on the side of it, you can see it's warmer. Here it looks like it's about 75 degrees. And then the warmest part is right there near where the light is blinking, and that's indicating about 83 degrees. Looking right at the light, yeah, about 85 degrees. And then over here is a hot spot at about 87 degrees. And then coming out of that, this is where we have that adapter that comes out. That is 82. And then looping around, we've got the high 70s down into the plug that goes in the wall at 75 degrees. Shortly after starting the car charging, I then wanted to test some other things. So I read through the manual and then started the process of connecting the mobile connector to Wi-Fi. I ran into a problem where I'd put in the Wi-Fi network name and then I'd type in the password and it wouldn't let me click save unless I figured out after a lot of trial and error that I could put a space after the password and then backspace on that to delete the space at the end of the password, and then it would let me save the password. So it expects there to be space in there for some reason. I don't know what's up with that, but that made it so that it finally would connect to Wi-Fi successfully. Other than that, the Wi-Fi setup process was pretty typical of devices that I've experienced in the past. You connect your phone to the Wi-Fi that is coming from the device itself. You then open the app, you go into the settings, you put in the Wi-Fi name and password, and then connect. It then reboots the device, and then you switch back to your normal household Wi-Fi. And once you've done that, you then open the app. You have to register and create an account. Then you click on the top right corner, you add your device, put in your serial number, and then it showed up just fine in the app easily at that point. Once I had access to the device and it showed it, the details of it on the screen, it popped up a notice right away saying, hey, you need to update your firmware. And then didn't say how to do that. Like I expected to have a button to say, go ahead and do it now. And it didn't. So I explored for a long time trying to figure out where to update the firmware. And at that point, the car had started charging from the device, and I thought that was what I wanted. But as a part of the troubleshooting, I stopped the charging. And after I did that, there was then an icon that appeared on the screen that wasn't there previously, that when I tapped it, it then said, do you want to update the firmware? So I said, yes, do that. It was able to update the firmware over Wi-Fi after I had it connected to the Wi-Fi, of course, but also you can't be charging when you want to initiate that firmware update. Once the firmware update was complete, I honestly couldn't tell that anything had occurred. The interface was the same on the app, which the app version hadn't changed. It was the firmware on the device that changed, but there's no evidence of that, and there's no firmware numbers or anything. But that icon that was there previously to update firmware no longer appears, so I think that's the conclusion. If that icon's not there, then you have the latest firmware. Now let me show you more details of the app itself. Here's the app. Let's do a quick tour of it. This is the main home screen. You can see in this first module at the top, it shows the current energy consumption that it has been pulling from, in this case the house, it's what it's plugged into. And then down below that we have the amount of time that it's been charging. It's been charging for longer than that, but I've just been plugging it in and out and upgraded the firmware, and I've been experimenting with it, so that's the amount of time that it has right now. Now the 3.8% progress that it's indicating is because the charge session, I have it indicated to go for a long period of time. I can't remember, but I think it's supposed to do like 100 kilowatt hours or something to that effect. I'm not sure why it has that feature. I feel like the car should be in charge of that, and that the mobile connector should just give it energy as long as it asks for it. But this one has the ability to specify charge sessions, and it'll stop charging after a certain amount of energy has passed through it. So I find this interesting on the right side that it shows 40 amps max, and yet it's only pulling 38.4 amps. I'm not really sure why it doesn't just pull the 40. But I feel like this is pretty typical. I've seen it in other mobile connectors as well. When you measure the actual electricity, it's not usually the actual amount specified. This is on a 50 amp circuit, so it could definitely be doing 40, but the internal circuitry of this mobile connector is only showing 38.4 amps. Switching over here to the Tesla app, you can see it actually indicates there in the center 40 amps. So the car thinks it's getting the full 40 that it's expecting. And so obviously there's some rounding going on here. I'm not really sure all the particulars, but you can see that Tesla's rounding to 9 kilowatts, where this charger is capable of 9.6 kilowatts by figures of 40 amps times 240 volts. But it's not actually doing that. It's only passing in the 38 amps, and the Tesla is indicating 40 amps. I'm not sure what's actual truth, record of truth in this case. It's not terribly important. It still is plenty fast charging, and especially for a mobile connector where many of them are maxing out at 32 amps, this is still higher than them. Looking at this top module, if we click on it or tap on it, you'll see it goes into a detailed screen that has a graph. And if we tap along this graph, you can see it's indicating how many kilowatt hours have passed in over that amount of time. And so it's showing 3.4 kilowatts up to 4 at this point. Now, you'll see on this graph that it goes up to 100 kilowatt hours, and that's why it's pretty low across the bottom, because we haven't actually passed all that much into the car yet. So I find that kind of interesting, that graph. I'm not sure how much I'll ever use that. Moving down, it shows the charging voltage, current, and then power from that. And so right now it's indicating 9.2 kilowatts. And like I said, I'm not really sure why it's not just passing in the full 9.6 kilowatts. I wish it would, but it's doing 38.4 amps instead at 240.6 volts. And so the Tesla, though, thinks it's getting the full 40, so I'm wondering if maybe the Tesla is the one that is being conservative and pulling in just shy of the limit. Probably just to try not to trip any breakers and be a little bit more conservative. If we tap on that charging section, then it goes into more details here as well, where it shows us the graph basically. Now on this graph, if I tap on it, it'll show me more details. You can see it shows current and voltage over time. They don't vary very much, so that's pretty much just what it is. I find it interesting, down here on the bottom there's this legend, and you can tap on current or voltage and hide them or show them. Since there are only two things on the graph, I don't feel like that's terribly important or necessary, but you can do that. Okay, cool. All right, then going back and looking at the bottom, I like this. It's in Celsius, and I looked through the settings. I could not find a way to have it show Fahrenheit instead, but it is cool that it's showing the temperatures. And if we tap on those temperatures, it shows us a graph of the temperatures over time. And so it's showing, 45 degrees Celsius for the green line, which down here you can see that's the male connector, which once again you can show or hide it. Now the male connector I think is referring to the J1772 connector end. It's not really clear here though. The blue line is the plug, and so I think that that's the NEMA 1450 plug that's plugged into the house. And you can see actually it has changed in temperature slightly. The blue line there, it was 28 degrees Celsius, and the next line over it shows 29. So it went up 1 degree Celsius, but everything else on here has pretty much stayed the same temperature throughout according to this graph. And so that's cool. That's interesting. Way more information than I've seen in any other mobile connector or even permanently charged connector that I've interacted with. And that's about it. If I push this off button, it will stop the charging. It'll turn off the mobile connector, and then the Tesla will indicate red on the charge port and thinks that the power source just stopped working. So I think it's better to actually stop the charging through the Tesla app. Here in the Tesla app, you can just click the stop charging button right here down in this area, and it will stop charging there, and then it doesn't have a red indication light on the car. And then if you want to restart charging, then you can push start here on the Tesla app, and it will just restarts it, and the mobile connector is more than willing to continue giving it energy. So I think that that's the better method if you're going to stop or start the charging. So back here in this app, if we look at down here at the bottom, this home button is where we've been. If we move on to the next screen over, this is the charging graph. And this will, over time, have more data. Right now it's brand new to me, so I don't have much data to look at. This is February 20th, and it's showing 3.9 kilowatt hours. And so this graph will look more interesting once I have more data, but this is what it looks like for now. The next one over shows us our charging schedule. I personally never intend to use a charger, a mobile connector, or a wall connector to dictate the schedule of the charging of the car. I will always do that in the car itself. So this I will never do. But I guess some electric cars don't have a schedule. So in this case, in those cases, then you could use this for that. And then we can go in here to the settings, has the about screen, which has the software version. And this is where you can say software update, but that's for the mobile app. And so this is already up to date. Then we have the notifications screen, and this is where you can indicate which notifications you want to get. Then we have the theme. You can do light or dark theme. And then you can do language, and I'll stick with English, and then my account, and then the help. My account is just, you can disconnect your account from this app and then you'll lose access to it. So I'll never do that. And then here you can see about us, Q&A, and then the different indication status lights. If we go into the Q&A, this is, there's a lot of questions in here and answers. I'll just scroll through that fairly quickly. You can see, oh, I guess there's 11. So give you an idea of what that has. So we'll go back here to the home, and then we'll go in this menu in the top left corner, and then it has this device. So if we had multiple mobile connectors, they would all be listed here. We can jump between them with this screen. We can tap on that menu, and it gives us the option to share this mobile connector to someone else, to their account, and then they could see it in their app as well. I will never use that, I'm sure. I can reset the network settings or restart the device from here, or close this screen. And that's most of it. I guess I hear one more thing we have in the top right corner. This plus symbol is where we can add the device, and that's what I used to add this device to my account when I first entered it. I entered the serial number. It has this scan feature, and when I clicked the scan feature, it didn't work. I clicked that, it brings up the camera, which you're not going to see anything here. And there are 2 QR codes on the back of it. I tried each one, and neither of them worked, so I don't know why. But the serial number worked just fine. And then lastly, we have this messages area. If you've disconnected the car from it, it'll bring up a user message saying the car was disconnected. I don't find those to be terribly helpful, but it's kind of like a log of what has occurred. And I've cleared it out so you don't see anything there. And that's about it. It's a fairly simple app, but hey, it's way more than any other mobile connector that I've worked with. The JuiceBox Pro 40 is what I often use, and that is the much larger device that's bolted to the wall of my house, and I've been using it for like 4 years, and this is actually working really well. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to point out. I actually charge my car from my travel trailer, and I'll get into this in more details in a future video, but I adjust the amps that the car is pulling through the charger, because the solar varies, the output varies based on the weather and the time of day, time of year, various factors. And let me just demonstrate. So here in this mobile app for the Tesla, I'm going to tell it to stop charging, and then I'm going to switch over here to the mobile connector. And here is where you can say start, and then it lets you adjust the amps here, which I have not been able to do in a mobile connector in the past, so I like this. And for instance, maybe I want to go down to 6 amps. Actually, 7 is my average that I usually charge my Tesla from when it's plugged into the trailer. Especially if I don't want to be adjusting it throughout the day, I just want to set it and forget it for a middle portion of the day. So I can come in here and say save, and that. Oh, and actually it says schedule charge. I don't want to schedule it. I want it now. So I'm going to say save and confirm. And then it says plug not connected. And so what I have to do is go out to the car and unplug it and plug it back in, and then it will begin charging. Or I've been experimenting, but sometimes I can say start charging here, and I think I accidentally just stopped it. So we'll say start charging. Yeah, so it's running to some, like, it runs into the state where the car has stopped charging and the mobile connector is trying to start charging, but the car won't do it. And so maybe it'll work here. I'm still experimenting. I'm new with this particular device and how it works. It looks like maybe that worked. Let's go back over to the Tesla app. And okay, yeah, cool. You can see right there, now it's showing 7 amps and that it's charging at that 7 amps at 245 volts. The voltage went up a little bit because it's far fewer amps that we're pulling. So the voltage sag is less, and so it's gone up. So this is really cool. I haven't been able to do this in the past with a mobile connector. I've been doing this with my JuiceBox Pro 40. So I'm really happy to now have 2 devices where I can adjust the amps down to each individual amp, meaning it's at an increment of 1 amp that I can adjust the amps. However, I will say I don't love this methodology. The JuiceBox, I can go into the app and adjust the number, and it just, mid-charge will just change the amps right here on the screen of the Tesla. With this app, I have to stop the charging and then start it again, and then it's upon the starting of the charge here in this app that it gives me the option to change the amps. I can't do it mid-charge. Not a huge deal though. So I'll probably use this mobile connector when I'm charging from the house, and I'll probably use the JuiceBox Pro 40 when I'm charging from the trailer, just because I have that slight preference of amp adjustability mid-charge instead of having to stop and start it, and I don't want to get into that weird funky state. In conclusion, I really like this mobile connector. I'm going to continue using it on a daily basis going forward, and because I charge my Tesla from two sources, actually my house and my travel trailer, and I'll get into that in a future video in more detail about how I do that from the travel trailer, but I do that. And in the past, what I've been doing is unplugging the JuiceBox Pro 40 from an extension cord that goes out to the trailer, and I plug it into the house when I want to charge from that source. And then when I want to charge from the trailer, I unplug it and plug it into that extension cord. That's kind of a pain in the butt, and it's not great for having, you know, a lot of wear and tear on the connectors, you know, plugging in and out all the time. So, but the reason why I was doing that is because I wanted that adjustability of the amps. The JuiceBox Pro 40 can go up to 40 amps, which sometimes I needed to charge quickly. Other mobile connectors can only go up to 32 amps. But at other times I needed to charge from the trailer, and I wanted to have that amp adjustability because the trailer can only handle up to 20 amps. And actually a lot of the times I only charge at 7 amps or 6 amps. It just depends on the solar output of the trailer and the weather and all of that. So now what I'm going to do is use the JuiceBox Pro 40 for one side, like the house for instance, and then I'll use this new mobile connector for the trailer, or maybe the other way around. I'll continue to experiment with it. But it's going to work well, so I'm happy about that, and I'm pleased that it has what I need to be able to do either of those tasks. This mobile connector has all of the same functionality as the JuiceBox Pro 40 at half the price. The JuiceBox Pro 40 is roughly $650 or $700, and this one is about $350 right now. So I think that that's a key thing. Why would you get the JuiceBox Pro 40 when now you can have up to 40 amp charging and their Wi-Fi connected? You can control it from the Wi-Fi, you can adjust the amps, you can see reports and graphs, although fairly simplistic. So I think that that is a key thing, and this mobile connector is worth getting instead of a wall connector that you bolt to your wall. This charger comes with that bracket, and so you can just hang it on the wall, and so that the weight isn't hanging on the plug. It also has the J1772 plug that you can have on the wall and that it connects to and hangs from. With those two things, it works as well as a charger that you would bolt to your wall and just have it be dedicated to your house. But you can easily lift it off of those brackets, coil it up, put it in the nice bag that they provided with it, and put that in your car, and then take it on road trips, and you can use it in that application as well. So if you're going to buy just one charger, this is a great charger to buy just for that one purpose. One of the potential weaknesses is that it only comes with those two plugs, the NEMA 1450 and the NEMA 515. The NEMA 515 standard household outlet, it can charge continuously at 12 amps. Or the NEMA 1450, which is continuously charging at, in my case, it looks like 38 point something amps. But technically it's up to 40 amps. That is a great thing, that it has those two connectors, but it doesn't have any others. Tesla's mobile connector has like 7 options, so that's not as great. That being said, I actually don't think that's a concern, because the way I use my mobile connector in, say, a road trip, is I use a extension cord. I have a NEMA 1450, 50 amp extension cord, and I'll put a card above to a video I made where I go over the details of all this, and you can go watch that video. But basically, I'm able to extend my cord length 30 feet by using this 50 amp extension cord, and then I use third-party adapters instead of adapting to being proprietary and going into the mobile connector directly. They're actually just adapting from various outlets to a NEMA 1450. So I just use the NEMA 1450 that the mobile connector came with, and then everything adapts to that, including the extension cord. So that's my solution, and I think that works well, and so that makes this limitation non-existent. The limitation being that it only comes with these two adapters. In short, this mobile connector gets my full endorsement. This is the one that I would recommend to anybody, and I'm going to actually continue using it myself as well. If I come up with any additional information that I think is pertinent to this video, I will make a pinned comment that I will post below that you can go see and get an update on that. And I'm going to be continually using this going forward. If I have any problems, I'll also post a pinned comment below about those problems. But in short, this is what I think is the best mobile connector that I've experienced, and I've experienced many now. So with that, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Baby James! Are you coming down to see what Daddy's doing in his office? Either that or he just likes to see himself on the camera.
Dad,
what?
can you put this weight on?
No. All right. There you go.
Thanks.
Good as new.